Hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to class. Today we're going to do some forward bends, specifically for beginners. Before we begin, if you find this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll start with a blanket. Let's fold the blanket so that it's long and narrow, and we'll be wanting to move that to a diagonal as we proceed with the first posture. But let's have that as height to sit on, and we'll sit with the buttocks on the blanket, stretching the legs forward in Dandasana. So we can press the palms down into the blanket here next to the hips, and depending on the length of your arms relative to the length of your spine as to whether the elbows will be straight or whether you'll need to have them partially bent. But work the thighs, press the thighs firmly down, broaden the back of the knees and the back of the thighs, and draw the shoulder tips back, shoulder blades down the back. As we move to Janu Sirsasana, the head of the knee pose, let's bring the right hip and knee into flexion first. So exploring, is this knee at ease when we flex the knee? And then can we get some external rotation in the hip? The thigh bone turning out. And we've got the blanket here as support underneath that outer right thigh. So we feel into that. We're keeping the knee supported, the outer right knee supported with the right hand, and we're holding the ankle with the left hand, keeping the ankle in, keeping the heel in close to its own sitting bone. So right heel in, close to its own sitting bone, depending on your hip and your knee. If the knee is problematic, perhaps there's less flexion in the knee, you won't be able to hold the ankle, but you're still supporting the outer knee as you're moving that leg out and down. Then when it comes to placing that right leg into its final position, we're going to work firstly as if we're doing the tree pose, Vrikshasana. So we've got the heel in close to its own sitting bone if possible, and then when we roll the thigh out, the heel, right heel is in line with the left groin. Ball of the foot's pressing more to the inner aspect of the thigh. So our hips are still facing that front narrow edge of the mat. Sit up straight and feel, does this knee need support? Do you want to have a brick underneath that outer thigh and shin? Or is it okay sitting there? Work it down towards the floor. And then let's support the knee as we bring the leg back upright and stretch the leg straight. Now the left leg. Bend up the knee. So bring the hip and the knee into flexion. And again, you'll note I'm holding the outer shin with the left hand and the ankle with the right hand. So explore that. And then as you're ready, hold the ankle with the right hand, as long as your knee is willing to flex that deeply, and then start to explore the external rotation. So left thigh moving out and down, and again, you can use your left hand, offer that outer shin some support. And the right hand's holding the ankle in close, holding the heel in close. Then as you're ready, release that knee out and down and bring your heel in close to the right groin, ball of the foot close to the inner mid-thigh there. And if you feel that you need support, you can wedge a brick in here underneath the outer thigh and shin bone. But roll the inner right thigh down, watching that leg doesn't roll off to the side. Press the hands into the blanket next to your hips, sit up straight. And then you can support the knee, bring the leg back upright and stretch the leg forward. Back in Dandasana. Make sure you have a belt nearby for this next variation. As we intend to come forward, we're wanting to consider the length on the front of the body. So we'll get our leg into position and then we'll feel what's happening there on the front body. Bend up the right knee. Take the leg out, You can support that outer knee. Feel free to put a blanket or a brick underneath the outer shin and thigh. And then take your belt and put that around the ball of the left foot. Ensure that the inner left thigh is rolling down and the toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. And as we're turning this right thigh out, can you press the head of the shin towards the floor or onto your brick if you have a brick underneath the shin? Lift up the chest, but make sure the lift is coming from the lumbar spine. Roll the pelvis forward. Draw the top of the sacrum in, lumbar spine in. And then as you pull on the belt, lift the chest up. Observe the distance between the breastbone and the navel. We don't want to shorten that distance as we come forward, because that just means we're going to be rounding the back and collapsing the front body. So we want to keep that same length, breastbone to navel, from when we're seated as we come forward. Inhale, exhale, pull on the belt and slowly start to bring yourself forward. And for some, it may not feel like it's very far, but do your best to maintain that length between breastbone and navel. Perhaps you can walk your hands further down the belt. Feel that the predominant flexion is in the hips. We're hinging forward, rotating the pelvis over the thigh bones. And then if you have the capacity, you can allow yourself to come further and further forward. The spine starts to flex, but again, be mindful that it's not just that predominant flexion in the spine. You're not thinking about getting your head to your knee. Rather, think about looking forward to the big toe, lengthening the breastbone forward to the big toe as you come forward. And then perhaps, if you can continue to come forward with that length on the front body, the crown of the head points towards the big toe. Keep the elbows up and pull on the belt, feeding the upper arm bones back into the shoulder joints. Draw the shoulder blades down the back towards your hips. Roll the inner left thigh down. Then raise the head up. Raise the torso up, and then we'll swap our legs. So leave the belt there. Support the outer right knee. Bring the leg back upright. Stretch the leg straight. Left leg. Bend up the knee. Turn the thigh out. Make sure the inner right thigh is rolling down towards the floor, and feel free to offer some support here with another blanket or a brick underneath the outer thigh and shin. Let's put our belt around the ball of the right foot. Lift up the chest, and remember that the lift of the chest stems from the lift in the lumbar spine. As long as the pelvis is pulled back, it's going to be very difficult to lift up. Do your best to roll the pelvis forward. Get that lift in the lumbar, and the chest will correspond with the lift. And as you pull on the belt, you can use that to help move the chest forward and up. Then, if you feel you've got room to move forward, inhale, exhale, pull on the belt, draw the chest forward. So again, don't let the chest lag behind. Chest leading the way as you come forward. And perhaps you can walk your hands down the belt towards the foot. Go on pressing the ball of the big toe into the belt. Don't let that shrink back towards the hips. And the inner right side down towards the floor. So we feel we're getting that predominant flexion in the hips. The pelvis is rolling over the thigh bones. Then if you feel you can go further, certainly you can walk your hands further down the belt, but pull on the belt, elbows out wide, resist them from dropping down, because often the chest will drop then. As the elbows are out wide, keep lengthening further and further forward, intending to maintain that length between breastbone and the navel as the spine gently flexes. And then perhaps the crown of the head can start to point towards the big toe. Go on rolling the inner right thigh down. The outer left shin also presses down. Then raise the head up and come to sit all the way up hold the outer left knee as you bring the leg back upright and stretch the leg to straight. Let's sit in Dandasana for a moment. Roll the shoulder tips back and down and press your thighs down. Now we're going to see if we can take that bent leg further back, which is more the classic presentation of the pose. And as we do that, we want to turn our blanket on the diagonal. So bend your knees, shift your blanket so that the right side of the blanket is further behind the left side of the blanket. Then again, sit in Dandasana and bend up the right leg so you can support the knee, hold the shin. And then as we bring the leg into external rotation, can you pull the knee further back? Even that right sitting bone can walk further back. Then the outer thigh is supported on your blanket and the shin bone can press to the floor. So you don't want the blanket underneath the shin bone. See if you can press the shin bone down, bring the right heel back to the right groin. Now it's common that the chest will start to turn towards that right leg. So once we get our belt around the left foot, turn your chest back towards the left leg. Lift up the chest, lift up the spine, move the spine in. Rotate the pelvis forward. Inhale, exhale. Pull on the belt, slowly start to draw yourself forward. Lengthen the chest forward, breastbone forward away from the navel. Walk your hands along the belt. Some of you may be able to reach for the foot, but don't reach for the foot by compromising the length on the front body. See if you can keep drawing. Sternum forward. Roll the inner left thigh down and then go over the leg. Press down the left thigh bone, but also press down the shin bone, right shin bone, the head of the shin. Press that down. Even though the right thigh is rolling out, can you roll the right side of the pelvis forward over the femur bone to help move your right armpit chest forward towards this inner left leg? And then raise the head up, raise the torso up, come all the way up. Support that outer knee as you bring your leg back up and stretch the leg forward. And then we'll move the blanket. Let's turn the blanket so it's on the diagonal. The left side of the blanket's further back than the right side. Start in Dandasana and then bring your leg into flexion, the hip and the knees in flexion. You can support that outer knee as you take the leg back, and you'll see that I'm walking this left sitting bone a little further back. So I can take this knee further back if possible. I want to bring my heel, left heel, more in line with the left groin. And potentially we can press down the head of the shin, but the thigh, the outer thigh is supported. Then as we put the belt around the ball of the right foot, we might notice that the chest wants to go with this left leg. See if you can turn your left chest forward, the left armpit chest forward, face the right leg, and roll the inner right thigh down. Draw the top of the sacrum in, lumbar spine in. Then maybe this is it for you. Maybe you're already at a strong feeling of stretch sensation in the right hamstrings. Maybe you're working to support your lower back and protect it from injury. But if you feel you can go further forward, on your exhalation, roll the pelvis over the thigh bones, lengthen your breastbone forward towards that right foot. Perhaps you can walk your hands along the belt. Perhaps you can reach for the foot. But again, not at the expense of rounding the back dramatically. There will be a gentle flexion in the spine as you come forward, but the predominant flexion needs to be here in the hips. So even though the left thigh is rolling out, can you rotate the pelvis over the thigh bones and direct this left armpit chest forward towards the right leg? Inner right thigh rolls down. Then you can raise the head up, raise the torso up. Come to sit all the way up. Support the outer knee as you bring the leg back up and forward again. But let's straighten our blanket. We'll sit in Dandasana once more. We're going to move on to Triang Mukhaikapada Paschimottanasana, which translates as the three-limbed face to one leg forward bend. We'll just shorten it by say forward bend pose. Paschimottanasana typically translates as the intense stretch to the west side of the body pose. So if we were being true to the translation of Triang Mukhaikapada Paschimottanasana, we would be saying three-limbed face to one leg, intense stretch to the west side of the body pose, which is quite a mouthful. We're going to use bricks now. We have our two bricks. We're going to sit them side by side, flat on the floor. And one brick is for either sitting bone. We'll sit in Virasana. So if you take your knees together and your inner feet and ankle bones against your bricks, come to sit back down, sitting bones on your flat bricks. Now, if the knees are not willing to sit in Virasana, perhaps you can build up the height underneath your buttocks. Perhaps you turn the bricks up higher. If you've got more bricks, use more bricks. Perhaps you use a bolster. And for some, maybe even you need to use a chair. But we've started in Virasana. We're going to keep the right leg in Virasana, and we need to straighten this left leg. So lean into the right sitting bone and stretch that left leg forward, replacing the sitting bone back on the brick. Commonly when we do this, the weight becomes very heavy in the left hip, the left sitting bone. The right sitting bone starts to want to lift up somewhat. So our job is to press the head of the right thigh down, feel that right sitting bone on your brick, and then we'll put the belt around the ball of the left foot. Keep the inner knees together and roll the inner left thigh down towards the floor. Just watch for that tendency for that leg to want to roll out. Press the ball of the big toe forward into the belt. Then as you're holding the belt, use the belt to help lift the chest, but remember that the lift of the chest originates from what we're doing in the pelvis and the lower back. So already roll the pelvis forward, draw the top of the sacrum in, draw the lumbar spine in, observe the length between the breastbone and the navel, and intend to keep that the same length as you start to come forward. Inhale, exhale, pull on the belt. Elbows stay up, shoulders roll back, breastbone leads the way. Then if you're reaching forward well enough with the torso, walk your hands down the belt. And again, as you pull on the belt, watch your shoulders not coming into the neck. Roll the shoulders back and down, even though the elbows are up. Breastbone forward, perhaps you can come further forward. But as you keep going, you might note the weight starts to lift up off that right hip. Can you keep pressing the head of the right thigh down? Try holding the belt with the right hand and pressing your left hand into the floor next to your hip to help transfer your weight back into that right sitting bone. Chest forward as you fold over the legs. Then raise the head up, raise the torso up, come to sit up. Let's leave the belt there and bring the left leg back into Virasana. So lean into the right buttock, sweep the left leg back into Virasana, ankle bone against the brick. Then we'll sweep the right leg forward. So lean over onto the left sitting bone, sweep that right leg forward, inner thighs together, and place your belt around the ball of the right foot. So again, we note that often the weight wants to sit more heavily in the sitting bone of the straight leg. So can you press the head of the left thigh down, bring that left sitting bone back down to the brick so the hips are level. Then as you hold the belt, lift the chest up. Feel the spinal muscles working, spine moving in. And as you're ready, we'll move forward. Inhale, exhale, pull on the belt, draw yourself forward. The hinging of the hips. So rotate the pelvis forward over the thigh bones. Walk your hands along the belt if you can. Draw the chest further forward. So the more you pull on the belt, the more I'd like you to think about drawing the sternum further forward towards that right foot. And then if you feel like you're lopsided, you're leaning very heavily into that right hip and it's difficult to get the left hip down, try holding the belt with the left hand and pressing the right hand onto the floor next to you to help transfer weight back into that left sitting bone. Outer left hip down as you come further forward over the legs. Go on pressing the right thigh down, right knee down. Then raise the head up, raise the torso up, come to sit up, leave the belt there and bring your leg back into Virasana. And let's sit there for a moment. Now we'll come out of Virasana. So you can come forward onto your hands, tuck your toes, slowly come off the knees, and let's bring a blanket back to sit on. Again, we'll come to sit on our two-fold blanket and we'll do Paschimottanasana, the intense stretch to the west side of the body pose, or our seated forward bend. Let's put the belt around the balls of the feet and sit up straight. So as we sit up straight, pressurize the thighs down, head of the thighs down, midpoint of the thighs down, open the back of the knees and rebound the chest up. So feel that action, that as you press your thighs strongly down, it helps with the rebound of the spine, the chest, up away from the floor. Now, if you're already feeling the stretch in the back of the legs, perhaps even in the lower back, you can stay more in this upright position. But if you feel you can go further forward, pull on the belt, hinge the hips, make sure that the pelvis is rotating over the thigh bones, lengthen the sternum away from the navel, yes, don't try and shorten that space there. Walk the hands along the belt as you continue to fold further and further forward. And if you can reach the feet, go for the catch of the feet, but pull on the feet or pull on your belt depending on where you're at, and keep the elbows up as you then lengthen the armpit chests forward. Armpit chests forward, sternum forward, folding over the legs, press your thighs down. The further forward we come, the more the legs want to resist and they want to pull up away from the floor. So your job is to press down the thighs, activate the quadriceps. And then raise the head up, raise the torso up, come to sit all the way up. Leave the belt and sit in Dandasana again. My YouTube videos are usually quite short and they're just a taste of what my full-length classes are like. If you're interested in accessing more of my full-length classes, I have a huge variety of classes on my website in my video library, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. There are a number of different channels. We have the intermediate channel, gentle channel, bridging to intermediate channel, and therapeutic channel. Sign up now and start with a 7-day free trial. That's it today. Thanks for joining me. For more in-depth teaching, check out the video library on my website, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. The link is in the description box below.